Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Sunday evening slash night, depending on wherever it is that you'll be joining us from. But I hope you guys have had a wonderful day. It's been quite a hot one, quite busy for me. Some family responsibilities to take care of and things in that line. But as I did promise you guys, we did premiere that video regarding our predictions for the Premier League season 2027, 2026, 2027. So the title of that is called Predicting the 2026-2027 Premier League season. Who will win it? We discuss that. We discuss the top four, among other things. Only if opponents are on the attack. Anyways, as I saw it was watched by one of our semi-regular suspects who said that Aston Villa will win the league. I don't know about that, but if it is his genuine prediction, so be it. Anyways, I hope you've all had a wonderful day. We are back to carry on the conversation regarding football. Today was a big day in as far as English football is concerned because it was the curtain raiser to the actual season between Manchester City and Arsenal in the FA Community Shield. Then Barcelona have agreed a deal with Manchester City for Rodri. We'll be discussing that. We'll be talking about what we made of the performance from the two teams in terms of the fixture of the Community Shield and more of those stories in that regard. So kindly indulge me as we go through it all on this one. But Rio Dandy says, after a long time, hello, sir. Hello to you too, Rio Dandy. How's been your day? How are you doing? Is there something to, is there anything new, positive or otherwise from your day that is worth discussing, or deliberating on before we carry on with our routine conversation when it comes to football in that respect? Anyways, what was I going to say? Tomorrow, okay. Anyway, tomorrow we'll do our best to make sure we're available for the morning broadcast. Now, boring and simple. For most football fans, when before the season kicks off, their weekends are often typical of what you've just said. Boring and simple. Like if you're a believer, maybe you'll go to church, do something, and the day goes by. Enzo Oliver says hi. Hi, Enzo Oliver. Are you in any way related to Enzo Maresca or Enzo Fernandez of Chelsea? Just kidding on that one. But anyways, I hope you're good. Where are you joining us from? Kindly let me know where you're joining us from before we carry on. Kindly also like the broadcast and consider subscribing to the channel. If it is your first time here, guys, do all that and see. Let's carry on with the conversation for tonight. I can see we're at 12 people, but only a handful of you have liked the broadcast thus far. Anyways, so what did you guys make of why are people criticizing against Fabrizio Romano? I really don't know, but I've seen the reports in the media. I was wondering why Mail Sport is talking about him, and which other outlet? There's another outlet sort of critiquing him. There's a tweet he made. Was it a tweet or something? Anyway, there's a communication that came through, and it seemed to insinuate that he was going to quit transfers and as if go do something else, something like that. So speculation emanated from there. He's been criticized of spamming and okay. Anyways, here's one thing. I've been one of those that have criticized him sometimes when he comes up to give an update on a particular piece of news or transfer, and yet he has no actual update. I'll give you an example what I mean by that. He will tell you, for example, that negotiations, let's say for Rodri to Barcelona advanced, and then come back hours to say Rodri to Barcelona, not yet. Here we go, but conversation, negotiations are carrying on. I mean, you've already told us that there's nothing new in what you brought, so I understand that why people are frustrated about him. I was one of those that criticized him, but also the other thing that I appreciate is that, or respect, is that he's not going to operate the way other people operate. Why? Because unless I do not consume or live within the same space, but some of these journalists, I'll give you an example. David Austin will, let's say, drop an exclusive, leave it there, and then he will disappear for days, come back with another exclusive or a major update on that very exclusive, depending on how things fast tracked. But contrary to that, Romano does it in a different way. So even though I criticize him, I respect him enough to know that that's how he's chosen to do things. Now, the thing about the likes of David Austin is that they get invited to TV shows, what's it called, podcasts, and they also, say some of these things, sometimes repetitively, but in a way, they're not bombarding your social media. In fact, oftentimes with the news breaks, people fast run to, once, let's say, Fabrizio Romano breaks a piece of news about a Premier League player, by the way, and a big player, they will run over to David Austin's timeline to try and confirm it, or somewhere on BBC Sport or Sky Sport, depending on where they get their affirmation from in regards to what is a good deal, something like that. So that, to the best of my knowledge, that is partly what I know in regards to criticism in his direction. If there's anything otherwise, I am not yet privy to it. Rodri going to Barcelona, I wanted him at Real Madrid. Well, you wanted him at Real Madrid, but he's going to Barcelona. That is almost a done deal. All he's waiting for is a green light for him to travel back to Spain to undergo his medical. It is being reported that he will put pen to paper on a 4-year contract. That is what is being offered. A deal that has been agreed is in the excess of £65 million in total. That's for guaranteed fees and add-ons combined, which have been defined as easily achievable add-ons. I can see somebody says, is it Gil? Says, Daddy, which country are you in? I mean, Uganda. Thanks for asking, Gil. I'm in Uganda. How about yourself? Where are you joining us from on this beautiful evening? So basically, excuse me. So this story is out there. It's been broken in the last less than an hour that Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante, or about an hour, depending on what your source is headed for Barcelona. According to David Austin, Barcelona have struck an agreement with Man City to sign Rodri, 76.5 million euros package, 60 fixed fees and above 11 in bonuses viewed as highly achievable. So Manchester City can expect at least 71.5 million euros deposited, despite the Spanish captain entering final 12 months of his contract. That's the update. First of all, is it a good deal for Manchester City? Yes. Is it a good piece of business for Barcelona? Yes. However, now, a lot of people wonder what causes some players to be more expensive than others. Oftentimes, age is one of those, criteria. Your age, your contract with your current club, and how much the current club values you, and how much the buying club would value. And then what is not often told is what we call commissions, either in agents and brokers or wheeler dealers. okay, let's call them brokers, people that help facilitate a move or people that help bring it home. Because some of these moves just don't happen out of the blue. Players take some bit of convincing sometimes to choose a particular club. So those who aid that process also receive certain praise. So, anyways, why I say it is a good deal for Manchester City in terms of money or the finances, they get a good piece of business. Player joined them in 2019. He's been quite a loyal servant for the what? Close on to 7 years? Okay, 6 years. Let's say. No, 7 years. He's won everything with them, and they are ending up making a profit off of what they invested initially to get him. That's why I say it is good money or good business for Manchester City. Two, he's entered the final 12 months of his contract. So if the alternative was that they lose him for free at the end of the season, really holding on to him, it wouldn't have done them much good financially. So at least you get this money, perhaps combine it with that of Tijan Reinders, which is 61 million euros. That's 120 million euros, and try and make a move for Enzo Fernandez or any other midfield target that, as you may see fit in pursuing. So that's the take of it that is good. But still staying with Manchester City, it is a bad deal. Why? Hear me out on this one. Because there's always two sides to the coin. So I wouldn't be, the debate wouldn't be complete if I do not give you both sides. In what ways is it bad? You lose a captain. You lose a leader in that dressing room. You lose another key part of your midfield because you've already lost Bernardo Silva. In other words, you're losing two central midfielders that are critical or integral to everything that you've been able to achieve over the last couple of years. Now, in an almost similar fashion to what Newcastle have had to go through, a rebuild seems to be on the horizon. And Manchester City, given their plethora of resources, you cannot question their ability to rebuild. However, I do not think that there is a player, a single central midfielder out there in the market that you could sign to fill the void of Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante, pound for pound. There's a saying in our local language or in Luganda that where yours lives, yours is not replaced. Where yours, in other words, where someone of yours is taken out of action, maybe passes on, they cannot be replaced. In other words, I'll use this example. If you suffer an accident and lose a leg, you end up with a walking stick, or how is it called? Those artificial legs. There's a specific name for them. You end up with that. So that's never a good thing. That's never a good thing. So in other words, what you lose and what you replace it with can never be equal. God forbid. Also look at it this way. It's like having a child and you lose that child and then you give birth to another child of the same gender. No matter how identical they look like, deep down in your heart, you'll know this can never be a replacement for the other. In a way, maybe that's too big a stretch for an example, but it will help drive the point home. So in other words, Manchester City, we know they are trying to sign Ayubu Buadi. We know they are trying to sign Ayubu Buadi from Lille. That deal could be wrapped up anytime, perhaps in the course of the week. But for now, that it is not yet wrapped up. Looking at what Man City have in Nico Gonzalez, in Mateo Kovacic, and Elliot Anderson, none of those players is the equivalent of Rodri. Therefore, Man City have lost something. You lose a great player, you lose the leadership, and then in the wider picture, you lose a second midfielder that has the experience. All that on top of losing your longest serving manager in Pep Guardiola. So, in other words, do not look at it in isolation. Look at it as a combination of factors. Pep Guardiola out, Bernardo Silva out, Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante out. So, that's the argument on Manchester City's side. To the flip side, Barcelona get themselves a really, really good player. First of all, Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante may not be big a brand as an individual as you'd have a Vinicius Junior, a Kylian Mbappe, a Jude Bellingham, a Bukayo Saka, in a way, in terms of social media and personal profiling. But he does still command a certain audience. He's the kind of player that Barcelona fans, I figure, will be really, really excited about. I know a lot of Barcelona fans are out there thinking, we should be looking to sign an elite centre back. What happened to Bastoni? That kind of thing. I know you're thinking that. But really, if they think that, they will know that they've gotten themselves quite the game. A player that is returning home, a player that needs no adaptation to the Spanish Liga because he's played there before and quite successfully. That's how he attracted the attention of Manchester City. A player that is a World Cup winner, a Euro winner, a Spanish national team captain. So, really, East or West home is the best. It feels like he's simply returning home. And at home, he's going to be warmly welcomed. So Barcelona are going to make some money off selling quite a good number of jerseys for Rodri. But also, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the current transfer window and how prices of players are exaggerated, regardless of what our feelings could be about those particular players, for Barcelona to be able to land the services of a player as experienced as Rodri is almost the equivalent of picking a land title that is already in your name. Now, 76 million euros is not small money, but it is money really, really worth it. And given that he's set to put pen to paper on a 4-year contract, imagine what could happen in 4 years. Let's assume you get 2 outstanding seasons out of Rodri, and then the third is okay, and then the fourth is fairly okay. It will still be worth it. But you could also get 4 solid years out of him. Remember when Andrea Pirlo left AC Milan, when AC Milan thought they had squeezed all the juice out of him, only for him to go to Juventus and become a mastermind of everything they were doing under Antonio Conte between around 2011 to 2015, thereabout. So really, it's a brilliant piece of business for Barcelona. They get the player that they've been looking at or they've wanted. In the absence of Frenkie de Jong, he won't be missed when you get yourself Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante. So I'll leave that at that. But yeah. Then, okay, staying with a bit of transfers. Aston Villa did reach an agreement in principle with Parma to sign Zion Suzuki, deal for the 23-year-old Parma goalkeeper worth 30 million euros plus future add-ons, potentially taking the package to 35 million euros, 5-year contract in place with Japan, with the Japanese international keen on the Aston Villa move throughout. Now, remember, this is a player that was set to that was set to join PSG, and that deal fell through, you know, and now Aston Villa have come to the table, excuse me, have come to the table and agreed a deal to sign him. But also in the process, in him coming, it almost confirms that Barcelona are going to come in for Emi Martinez. Negotiations are still ongoing between the two, for the two parties, you know. Somebody is disturbing me. Okay. So again, this was from David Austin as an exclusive, saying Aston Villa did receive a fresh bid from Juventus for Emiliano Martinez, and a gap between, but there is a gap between valuation now. But the gap between valuation is narrowing. Juventus are willing to pay up to 10 million euros, 7 million euros plus 3 million for Aston Villa. Aston Villa want 10 million euros fixed, whereas Juventus are offering 7 fixed and 3 in add-ons. Personal terms for the 33-year goalkeeper, not an issue. Now, Aston Villa are looking to balance books. That's why they're pressing for that. But I understand where they're coming from with that. So, anyways, that is that. But also, Jesus Christ. In the last 2 minutes, greatest were discussing that. David Austin came in with a banger to say Emiliano Martinez from Aston Villa to Juventus off. Talks reduced price, gap and personal terms for 33-year-old, excuse me, for 33-year-old goalkeeper, no issue, but Juventus not proceeding on deal. Aston Villa will try to find solution, but either way, Zion Suzuki is the new number 1. Hello, Gam. Now, this is where it becomes difficult in a transfer market or in a transfer window. You sign a player promising them a particular position that they are definitely going to play, and then before you move on, the one that you have. Here's what happens, and it's a bit of a difficult situation to deal with. If you find yourself in the shoes of Aston Villa in this particular case, that you agree to sign Zion Suzuki, and you promised him to be number 1 before Emiliano Martinez exits, you end up having both goalkeepers. In other words, definitely Emi Martinez is going to be unhappy. But what that creates is that it puts you under pressure to move on Emiliano Martinez, which consequently could end up with you accepting a lower deal than ordinarily you would have gotten for the player, because you're under pressure to sell. Then, if you sell fast, before you bring in the replacement, it puts you now under a different form of pressure to bring in the replacement. And therefore, the selling club will know that you're under pressure. You're almost desperate, to sign this replacement. And therefore, what incidentally happens is that you may end up paying a higher price than what you ordinarily would have paid for the same player had you sort of bought them before selling the one you had. That's a bit of a difficult situation that you find yourself in or faced with. So, that's basically what happens. So it is the nature of the window. It's a bit of a catch-22, but it is something that you have to go through or deal with, So whichever way Aston Villa deal with it, they'll have to deal with it. Now, as soon as that news broke in the last 2 minutes that the deal is off, because Juventus and Aston Villa are still far away in club-to-club agreement. Now, according to Fabrizio Romano, Villa insists on a 15 million euro valuation, while Juventus believes 6 million euros plus add-ons is the proposal, is fair. Now, remember, according to David Austin, they proposed 7 with 3 in add-ons. Aston Villa said we want 10 guaranteed. Anyways, whichever way you slice it, whoever is spot on with their numbers, the message is that there's no agreement between the two clubs. Now, according to Fabrizio Romano, in the last couple of seconds, he said Juventus have made an official club-to-club approach with Tottenham for Guillermo Vicario after Emi Martinez's deal currently off. Vicario wants Juventus and clubs are now in direct negotiations on a loan with a buy clause. Talks underway to get it done. So, obviously, if you're Emi Martinez, you're trying to push for the move. You're trying to think, oh my God, I cannot miss this opportunity. Because whichever way you look at it, Juventus is arguably one of the biggest clubs there is in Europe and obviously within Italy, So there's that. It's one of those situations that we'll have to monitor and see how it all develops. Still speaking transfers, Manchester City are now set to close the Ayubu Boadi deal with Real after selling Rodri to Barcelona. The agreement on personal terms was reached days ago and the decision has been made. Boadi joins now, not in 2027. Because from what we're getting from Lille was that in an ideal situation, they would have loved to sell this summer, but keep the player on a season-long loan. And then he moves the subsequent summer. But Man City are saying, if we're doing a deal, it has to be for now. It cannot be for now and then wrapped up later. Not to that. What they're saying, not what Chelsea did with Giovanni Quenda from Sporting CP. They agreed the deal in January 2025, and then the player was going to join after a season and a half. So there's that. Anyways, there's so many moving pieces to this. Now, remember, for every player movement at any big club, there's always bound to be an incoming sometimes, unless you're Chelsea. Gamo says, after Manchester City's performance today, don't think Boadi is enough. Speaking of Manchester City's performance, let's cross ourselves over to that game between Arsenal and Manchester City in the Carabao Cup. Because what we did witness was something that I did not expect. I don't know if any one of you out there had expected it. Now, the big question is, was I disappointed? Did the game live to expectations? What really happened? First and foremost, I don't think I was entirely disappointed. But simply my observation was that some of the Man City players looked a bit off in their preparation for the new season compared to some of the Arsenal players. I'll give you an example. But Erling Haaland, as pedestrian as he can often be in certain games, you felt like he lacked the sharpness. He lacked that bit of anger. He lacked that bit of quickness, Like a part of him felt a bit lackluster. That's what I felt. Same applied to Antoine Semenyo. Now, while you say all that against Man City, you could argue that maybe it is Arsenal that did well to show that side of them. But I felt that something wasn't fitting. In terms of starting 11s, here's how Manchester City set up. Gianluigi Donnarumma in goal, Joško Vardiol and Ruben Dias, Koshanov at right back and Nico Riley at left back, Mateo Kovacic and Elliot Anderson in that central midfield role, Phil Foden ahead of them in the 10, Jeremy Doku and Antoine Semenyo plus brought Erling Haaland. Now, Erling Haaland had only trained for a few days after returning from his extended holiday after the World Cup. So, but eventually, you know, they it just did not look sharp. On the other side, Arsenal had David Raya in goal, who looked okay, did well, which I cannot say the same for Gianluigi Donnarumma, because that second goal that was scored by Kai Havertz, even though it's a bouncing header, I thought he could have done better to keep that one out. But anyways, that's just my view, or was my observation. So Arsenal had David Raya, they had Ben White in goal, at right back. They had Christian Mosquera alongside Gabriel Magalhaes, Ricardo Carafiori, Martin Odegaard, Bruno Guimaraes, Maz Luis Kelly, Noni Madueke, Kai Havertz, and Christos Zoris. Both teams made as many as 6 substitutions, and the substitutions were as follows. Makehi, Omar Mamush, Ryan Cheki, Nico Gonzalez, yes, Jack Grealish came on for Jeremy Doku. Omar Mamush came on for Brad Erling Haaland. And Nico O'Reilly paved the way for McKay. Rico Lewis came in for Elliot Anderson. Ranchaki came on for Phil Foden, while Nico Gonzalez came on for Mateo Kovacic. On the side of Arsenal, Declan Rice came in for Bruno Guimaraes. I was really, really surprised that Mikel Arteta even put Declan Rice on the playing turf. As surprised, as disappointed. Why? Because we cannot complain about players having all this fatigue, and you want to play them at the earliest opportunity possible when the game was almost already won. Anyways, this was at halftime. Then Bukayo Saka came on for Noni Madueke. Hincapié came on for Ricardo Carafiori. Martin Zubimendi came on for Maz Luis Kelly, while Victor Gyökeres came through for Kai Havertz, and then Martin Odegaard paved the way for Eberechi Eze. So, in the end, what did we have? We had a very, very brilliant game. I thought Arsenal looked really, really sharp. Both teams had 5 attempts on targets, with 3 off target for Arsenal and 5 for Man City. Man City edged possession to the tune of 58% compared to Arsenal's 42%. But all throughout the game, you almost felt that it was Arsenal in the driving seat. Yes, Martin Raya was forced to make as many as 4 saves. One of which I think was instigated by Phil Foden. And that was in the first half. But he did brilliantly well. He did himself really, really well. So, in other words, standard performance on the part of Arsenal, David Raya was one of those. Gabriel Magalhaes, I thought he really, really played with a lot of leadership. He was always looking to direct Mosquera where to be, providing cover, anticipating the game and going ahead of him to sort of leave him so that he does not end up in panicky situations. I thought he did good. Ricardo Carafiori opened the scoring in as early as the opening minute of the game. Maz Luis Kelly, the way he ducks beyond Phil Foden and then anticipates the run of Ricardo Carafiori, plays a line-breaking pass in between players. That's what Arsenal have been asking for. Line-breaking passes down the spine in midfield. So he gave them that. And Ricardo Carafiori, with an excellent finish, that the equivalent of a forward. His run, just as sublime, So then, Kai Havertz scored in the 26th minute, was it? To make it 2-0 with Christos Zoris providing the assist. I think the ball was floated in by Martin Odegaard, and then he heads it back across, and then Kai Havertz scored. And then in the third minute of the second half, Martin Odegaard also scored to make it 3-0 with Christos Zoris again providing the assist. It was a bit of a cutback. You know how you drive with the ball, then you turn before you cross into the 18-yard box and make that pass that I believe was intended perhaps for Kai Havertz, but it was Martin Odegaard that latched onto it, double check Gianluigi Donnarumma to send him in an opposite direction before he slotted it in the bottom corner. It looked really, really brilliant. Trafford is a better keeper than Donnarumma. Now, it's one of those things that I've thought about before. I have seen James Trafford in action. However, I don't think I've seen him enough under pressure, game in, game out, to sort of formulate judgment on whether he can live to the billing. But it is true that if you're judging Gianluigi Donnarumma based on today's performance, yeah, you will say that he was wanting. You say he was wanting. But remember, they let go of James Trafford. He's gone to Leeds, and they brought in what's his name? There's a goalkeeper that they signed recently he's called Rodri, Geronimo Rodri, from one of those French clubs. No, a great start. Not a great start for Enzo. Obviously not. Obviously not. So I'm still talking about the great performance for the Arsenal side. So David Raya looked sharp. Gabriel Magalhaes did really, really well for me. Ricardo Carafiori was brilliant. Mazuri Kelly, quite spot on. Bruno Guimaraes did okay. But Martin Odegaard, an outstanding performance from him. Christos Zolis, for a debutant, for a game that big, that big in terms of against Manchester City, I thought he did really, really well, coming out with 2 brilliant assists. And yet, maybe he could have scored had Noni Madueke chosen to make the right decision when he went free. So, in terms of creating chances, looked like Arsenal were right at it. They gave Man City a running nose, kind of. So they looked brilliant. They really, really looked brilliant. Even Kai Havertz looked a bit sharp. So, yeah, and then he continues to show that he's a big game player. Kai Havertz is a big game player. I think I'm a bit sold on the idea. Okay, maybe not sold on the idea, but I think Mikel Arteta is going to start with Kai Havertz a lot in the opening part of the season, which was his plan the season prior. In terms of maybe you rotate them, you play this, you play the other, but I do suspect Kai Havertz could be his target man. Now, on this, should Arsenal get carried away? Because, somebody said that Arsenal have been conceding goals literally for fun during preseason, and now here they are keeping a clean sheet. Part of the reason as why I thought they were able to keep a clean sheet was because Man City weren't good enough on the day. It's not because that Arsenal was so excellent at what they did. For example, there's a ball that Phil Foden dropped in at the back post, and nobody was there to latch onto it. There's a clumsy piece of defending by Ben White, and nobody was there to capitalize on it. So, yes, the performance was brilliant for Arsenal, but in part because Manchester City was shambolic on the day, So then, is it cause for alarm at Manchester City in terms of the result? Absolutely not. Because, again, you're talking about players who never looked 100% fit. It's like they lacked rhythm. That midfield chemistry is yet to gel. We are yet to see it. Obviously, we had not witnessed it before. So it's something that will have to grow with time. So we ought to give it time. Could Manchester City suffer the same fate that Manchester United suffered when after Sir Alex Ferguson's departure? Because remember, Sir Alex Ferguson was there for quite a long time, and then he leaves, and then Man United have had their struggles. Are Manchester City bound to face a similar circumstance in the wake of Pep Guardiola's departure after 1 decade? I am not inclined to believe so entirely. Why? Because the circumstances are different. The time is much shorter because I think, let me see, Sir Alex Ferguson comes in 1986 and then he leaves in 2013. Guys, help me do the math. How many years is that? Or are those? That's quite a number of them. Perhaps a lot more than what Pep Guardiola, lasted at Manchester City. So, anyways, that's a period of 27 years. So you cannot compare 27 years to 10 years because it's a 17-year gap or difference between the two. Then, Manchester City, the way they plan their things and how they commit resources, you feel that, again, it's a different set of circumstances that they're going to try their absolute best to create an environment that Mariska will thrive through. I don't think they're going to panic. I don't think the result is cause for panic or alarm. It's just a one-off. And even if they were to they were to have a stumbling start to the campaign, it's okay. Yes, he knows Man City. Yes, he's been there before, but he's not going to be doing everything the same way Pep Guardiola did it. So therefore, we should expect some wobbles along the way, you know? So we should expect some wobbles along the way. For those of you that haven't watched my season predictions, I put Manchester City second on that league table. And I'm not just about to change my mind just because they got beaten by arguably one of the best teams there is in the Premier League and perhaps by extension in Europe, in Arsenal. Because where I was watching the game from, there was a couple of Manchester United fans. And I remember when they withdrew Miles Lewis Kelly for Martin Zubimendi, and then Declan Rice had come on for Bruno Guimaraes, they couldn't help it appreciate Arsenal's squad depth and the quality they are in. I mean, Eze comes on for Martin Odegaard. It was impressive. So anyways, that was my view of that. Gum says, I don't think Enzo Maresca will succeed at City. When he gets sacked, you will see. I'm not saying he cannot get sacked. I'm not saying he won't get sacked. I'm not saying it is going to go according to plan or to perfection. It is a gamble in itself. It's a gamble in itself. The expectations are for Man City to win. Why? Because last season they were challenging. It's quite different from, when Sir Alex Ferguson was leaving Manchester United, he left with them a bit of an aging squad, and eventually that aging squad did not buy into David Moyes' idea. And now we've learned that David Moyes wasn't even the first candidate to replace Sir Alex Ferguson. It had been Jose Mario Felix Mourinho, but he decided to then turn down the opportunity and instead went to Chelsea in 2013. So anyways, yeah, wobbles are bound to happen, but it's going to need a bit of time. Unless Man City are saying they do not know that it is going to need a bit of time, then maybe they are not as knowledgeable as we think they are. And that's why my advocacy was for Enzo Maresca not to change too much of what Pep had in place. Just look to build onto that, change a few things here and there, tweak a few things here and there, and carry it on and carry through the season so that you change them bit by bit as opposed to turning an entire page, So there's that. That's why I said that losing players like Rodri does not help. It does not help their cause. And I think Enzo Maresca was speaking. He was asked about him in the post-match press conference, and he said that any team would miss a player the quality of Rodri. So, you can understand where he was coming from with that. Let's see. Now, there's a bit of a generational curse, okay, on teams that win the Community Shield. In the last 15 years, only Man City have won the Community Shield and went on to win the Premier League title. Only Manchester City. Now, but I was looking further back beyond maybe 15 years. And Manchester United won the Community Shield, I think in 2007 and in 2008. and they still won the league title. So here's the list of Community Shield winners. In 2000, it was Chelsea. This is in the last 25 years. Liverpool in 2001, Arsenal in 2002, because 2003, Man United won the Premier League. So Man United won the Community Shield in 2003. Arsenal won the league title this season. Arsenal won it in 2004. We know that Chelsea won the league next. But Chelsea won the Community Shield in 2005 and came back and won the league in 2006, if you remember, under Jose Mourinho. Then in 2006, Liverpool won it. Man United won it in 2007. But in 2008, they won the league title. Then they won it again in 2008, and they won the Premier League title in 2009. Then Chelsea in 2009, Man United in 2010 and 2011, Man City in 2012, Man United in 2013, Arsenal in 2014 and 2015. Come to think of it, how come I hadn't remembered that? Anyways, then Man United in 2016, Arsenal in 2017, Man City in 2018. Remember? So they won it in 2018 and came back and won the league title in 2019. So Man City also won it in 2019. 2020 was Arsenal, Leicester City in 2021, Liverpool in 2022, Arsenal in 2023, Man City and Crystal Palace were the last two winners before Arsenal are winning it today. So that's been the chronology of events. But you can see that oftentimes he who wins the Community Shield does not win the league title. But there have been circumstances or situations in which teams have won it. United twice, Chelsea once, and Manchester City. So think about that for those of you that believe in superstitions and myths. Let me see. Now, a lot of talk has been also centered around Miles Lewis Kelly. We know that in the course of last week, reports had emerged that apparently he had been offered to Chelsea and Manchester United, although the player and the club have since denied those reports. So today, a Manchester United, and then there's a video clip of Rio Ferdinand advocating for Man United for Man United to sign Miles Lewis Kelly. Now, in that video clip, he talks about 60, 70 million pounds. Let me ask, if you're Arsenal, would you take 60 million pounds for Miles Lewis Kelly? I mean, he's an academy graduate. Therefore, that would go on the record books as pure profit, as one. Two, he will be Arsenal's most expensive sale in history. That's two. Then three, you'd also be losing a versatile player who can play left back, who can play central midfield. Another Man United fan said this, and I quote, he's called Frank Wayne Intambi. He's a Ugandan. He said, just read somewhere a few minutes ago that United's interest in this kid has accelerated at 40 million pounds and at 40 million pounds, and it could be a bargain of the season. Kid is very versatile enough to play more than one position and already elite on the ball. Arsenal fans would be right to be furious if Arteta lets him go, but with the quality in their squad, you can understand why some players may become expendable. United need to get this done ASAP before Arsenal change their minds. So you can see, there's that acknowledgement that there is a really, really good player in Miles Lewis Kelly, and that teams that could be interested should look to pounce on. Now, I have a feeling that for the right fee, you can price Miles Lewis Kelly out of Arsenal. That's just my feeling. I do not know whether the club are looking at it the same way, because, for example, in today's squad, you did not have Ethan Nwaneri, Gabriel Jesus, and Gabriel Martinelli. We know that Arsenal are willing to listen to offers for all those players. But even Miles Lewis Kelly, I can't help but have this feeling. Now, I know it would be almost ludicrous for Arsenal to part ways with him. It would almost be ludicrous. But if a tempting offer came, I know that they would hesitantly grant a move, especially if the other team manages to convince the player about playing time and then they come with good money. Those two combinations would be quite what it would take. So that's on the part of on the part of Arsenal. So because at left back they have Piero Hincapi and Ricardo Carafiori. Central midfield you have Mikel Merino, Bruno Guimaraes, Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice. As for players in a position where Maz Luis Kelly wants to play. But I believe now the question also arises: if you're Maz Luis Kelly, do you stay patient with Arsenal and hope for the best? Because last season he did not play plenty, but he was quite key to the business end of the season, how Arsenal wrapped up their season. He was a key part to that. When Zubimendi showed signs of tired legs, he had been training as a midfielder for over 2 months. And he comes through and he wins people's hearts. So much so that he's the one that started the UEFA Champions League final. So anyways, let's wait and see. But it is one of those curious cases. And then at the tail end of this week, there have been emerging reports suggesting that Arsenal need to sell and are under pressure to sell because they need to balance out their squad cost ratio when it comes to UEFA rules, But I'm not solely inclined to believe that is the case. And the reason for that is literally for every player they brought in, they moved out a player, apart from Ilan Messia. What's up, champ? How are you doing? You're looking good. Thank you so much. How are you doing yourself? It's been a minute. I hope you're doing okay. So that was the FA Community Shield. So beautiful performance from Arsenal. If they can start their season in that sort of fashion, then you never know. They can go on to to carry it. Arsenal have won the Community Shield in each of their 4 seasons as defending champions: 1998, 2002, 2004, and 2026. Can they go on to win the Premier League back-to-back for the first time? Ask the question. We all have. We'll be waiting for answers depending on how the season goes. Anyways, let's run to the transfer gossip and speculation as compiled by BBC Sport. Really? This feels like yesterday's news. I don't know. I don't yet have a fresh set of gossip and speculation. BBC are yet to update us. They compile it and put it in one place, which makes the job a bit easier. But anyways, let's look at some of the other deals that are making the rounds. At least Joao Cancelo is headed back to Barcelona. Barcelona did reach an agreement with Al Hilal for his transfer. Then Badri Bakola continues to be out of PSG squads in the midst of an anticipated move to Liverpool. Will Arsenal hijack the deal? I do not know. But I feel his price tag is too expensive. Thibaut Courtois said the team is training very seriously. You can see the commitment. We are hungry for a great season. When players say these things, it makes me wonder, were you not hungry the previous season? What was happening? Kylian Mbappe recently said, we are going to win something this season. We must win. Like last season, you didn't want to win. What happened? Because It's just it's not the case of you wishing it and then you get it. You have to grind out for it. You know. Okay. Then okay. Karim Adeyemi said it feels great to be here. Barcelona is the greatest club in the world. The team looks great. We can compete. We can go for titles. We will improve for sure. Guys, anyway, you cannot cheat where you eat. But sometimes I get tired of players saying this is the greatest club, simply because that's where they are at. Anyway, but there's also that saying that where you stand is where you're standing is where you see the sun from. You know, so meaning it could be different for everyone depending on where they're standing. Enzo Maresca did also confirm signings are coming at Manchester City. We knew already before the game the signings we need to do. We know what we have to do. We will be busy. So, in other words, Manchester City are not yet done with the transfer window, despite already bringing in Elliot Anderson and Geronimo Rulli, the goalkeeper. So let's wait and see, as well as Jeremy Monga. So let's wait and see what a piece of business they will be doing in the coming days. Guys, please do not forget to go under the video section of the channel and watch our Premier League predictions and leave me a comment down in the comment section as you see fit. You know, depending, you could agree, you could disagree. Anything can happen. Then Curtis Jones looks like he's on the verge of joining Inter Milan. Apparently, that deal is close, according to Nico what? I forget his second name. His name is a bit tricky. One of those journalists that is also good with transfers. Anyways, guys, why don't you allow me call it a wrap? It's been a bit of a long Sunday for me. So thank you so much, Danny. Thank you so much, Gum, Ario Dandy, Enzo, and every single one of you that has been part of the conversation tonight. Apologies, Viola. Yesterday, Viola was arriving to the party. We were closing the disco. You know that feeling of getting to bro. One question. All right, go ahead with the question. You know that case of arriving to the queue of food only to get there and the food is done. Yeah, felt like that for Viola. I mean, I saw her comment after I had ended the live. Then the comment literally propagated through as a last ditch, and there's nothing I could do about it. Otherwise, if I'd seen the comment before, I would have stayed on for a bit. Which transfer shocked you the most? A transfer that has shocked me the most in this transfer window. Let me see. Yan Diomande to Real Madrid, probably. Yan Diomande. The player, the profile, the cost, that has taken me, that shocked me really, because we were hyped up by Florentino Perez about a Marquis signing that was worth about 150 million euros, possibly even more. And we ran ourselves on a wild goods chase, thinking maybe it was going to be Lamine Yamal. Okay, that was wild goods chase indeed. But we thought of Michael Olise, we thought about Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, we thought about Vitinha, and those are some of the names that came to mind. Never did I ever think that it was going to be Yan Diomande. One, because I never thought right from the onset that Yan Diomande was even worth 100 million euros, and yet it's gone for 125 as guaranteed fees, plus 15 million euros in expected add-ons. So it's been a bit of a shocker for me. Then also Chelsea landing Morgan Rogers as quickly as they did it. That's a bit of a shocker. Why? Because majority of the reports that we had consumed right from the onset, were linking the boy with a move to Arsenal, and we knew that Chelsea were interested, among other clubs, but that Arsenal were leading the rest to sign him. But then, kaboom! Chelsea swooped in and signed him in similar style or fashion, the way they did in January 2023 when they signed Mukalo Modric. So those have been my transfer shockers thus far. I hope that answers your question, Peter Parker, aka Danny. Thank you so much. I'm going to hope that was it for the question. It's been a fruitful conversation for the last 1 hour. We'll look to pick up the slack in the morning for our morning broadcasts and digest more of what Rodri's move to Barcelona means and whether Real Madrid should be afraid. Have a good night, stay blessed, and see you guys tomorrow. Those of you that watch our live broadcasts long after they've ended, we do not take your time for granted. We appreciate you a great deal. Thank you for always choosing the Football Tribe UG channel. Bye-bye for now. Stay blessed. Thanks and good night, bro. Thank you as well. Bye-bye.